Welcome in, everyone, to our deep dive into the world of coffee. I'm excited to dig into all the sources you guys sent in. We've got articles, research reports, even a whole documentary. We're going to try to brew up some fascinating insights, I think.
Sounds delicious.
Well, and it's not just about the drink itself, right? This deep dive is really about the whole coffee experience.
It's pretty amazing how coffee's evolves from just, a simple drink into this global phenomenon with whole rituals and communities built around it.
Yeah, I love that point about rituals. It's not just about, grabbing a cup on the go anymore. One of your sources, actually, it was a YouTube video, had this quote that really stuck with me. It said, "Service is like an escalator, always moving down."
I like that. That's a good analogy. What was once exceptional service, quickly becomes the bare minimum. And businesses have to constantly innovate to stay ahead of that downward moving escalator, especially in what we now call the experience economy.
And that same video actually did a really good job of sort of explaining how we even got to this experience economy. It talked about, we started with agriculture, then we moved to the industrial age, then the knowledge economy.
And now here we are in the experience economy, where the focus is less on what you're selling and more on the feeling and memories people attach to it. It's like instead of just baking a birthday cake, it's about throwing an elaborate party that creates a lasting memory.
Okay, so how does that experience economy thinking apply to coffee, though? It can't just be about fancy latte art, right?
You're right, it goes much deeper than that. Just think about Starbucks, for example. They went beyond just selling a cup of coffee. They really created a third place between work and home. That comfortable space where people can relax, connect, and feel like they belong.
Yeah, it's funny. I remember when I first heard about Starbucks offering free Wi-Fi, I thought it was kind of a gimmick. But now you see it everywhere, right? They really tapped into something that people craved, I guess.
For sure. Free Wi-Fi, comfortable seating, personalized service. It all creates this experience that people are willing to pay more for. It's a good lesson for other businesses. Sometimes you need to give people something beyond just the product itself.
Yeah.
To create, a loyal following.
And speaking of creating these unique experiences, one of the articles you sent in was about this chain called Horn and Hard. They were pioneers in bringing the European automat concept to the U.S. back in the early 1900s.
Automat. That sounds interesting. What is that?
Okay, so imagine a restaurant with no waiters. And fresh food was dispensed from these vending machines for just pennies. It was a total novelty at the time, especially during the Depression era when affordability was so important.
Wow, they were way ahead of their time, using technology to streamline the dining experience.
Yeah.
But I wonder, were they able to keep that success going?
Well, sadly, no. Their very first restaurant was tiny, just a 10 by 16-foot space. And they had the slogan, "Less work for mother," which really focused on that convenience factor. But they did face some challenges. In the 1930s, they had some vandalism during labor disputes, which must have been a real setback for them.
It seems like even with their innovative service, they couldn't escape those social and economic realities of the time. So what ultimately led to their decline then?
Well, believe it or not, the rise of fast food, despite their, vending machine magic, Horn and Hard couldn't compete with that speed and affordability of burgers and fries.
Interesting. It makes you wonder if they could have, pivoted and used their vending machine technology for those fast food chains instead.
Yeah, right. Maybe they missed an opportunity there.
Sometimes a missed opportunity can be just as instructive as a success story.
That's true. And sometimes success comes from addressing a problem that no one else is even tackling. Which brings us to Melita Benz. She was the German housewife who invented the coffee filter in 1908. Talk about a game changer.
I love that story. Innovation often comes from those everyday frustrations, right? So what was Melita's pain point?
Well, she just hated coffee grounds in her cup. And, who doesn't? So she took a piece of her son's school notebook, punctured a tin can, and voila, the first coffee filter was born. It's amazing what a little ingenuity can do.
It really is. And what's even more impressive is her entrepreneurial spirit. She started testing with friends, patented her invention, and eventually turned her home into a production center. Before, expanding into a full-blown factory, she turned a simple solution into a billion-dollar business.
It's a great example of, tapping into a universal customer pain point, something anyone listening can think about in their own lives and work. What seemingly small problems are out there that you could solve with a bit of creativity? You might be sitting on the next billion-dollar idea.
Exactly. Sometimes the biggest opportunities are hidden in plain sight, just waiting for someone to solve those everyday annoyances.
And speaking of industry giants, we can't talk about coffee without mentioning Starbucks, right? I mean, they completely revolutionized coffee consumption, both in the US and globally.
Yeah, their story is a classic example of taking a product and turning it into a cultural phenomenon. So where did it all start?
Well, their first store opened in Seattle back in 1971, and believe it or not, they only sold whole beans. They were inspired by this shop in Berkeley that focused on quality and freshness. But who could have predicted the empire they would build, you know?
So what was the turning point then? What launched them into the global powerhouse they are today?
Well, it was Howard Schultz's trip to Milan in 1983. That changed everything. He just fell in love with that Italian espresso bar experience, and he had this vision to bring that same atmosphere to the United States.
And that's when they really embraced that third place concept, right?
Yeah.
Creating a space that wasn't just about the coffee, but about connection and community, a sense of belonging.
Exactly. And they really created this environment where people wanted to just linger. Comfortable seating, personalized service, that aroma of freshly roasted beans. It all came together to create this truly immersive experience.
Mm.
And then they added free Wi-Fi, which was, kind of revolutionary at the time.
It's amazing how all those seemingly small details can add up to such a powerful brand identity. Starbucks realized they weren't just selling coffee, they were selling an experience, a feeling. And that's something that, businesses in any industry can learn from.
Yeah, it makes me think about those long lines you see at Starbucks. Maybe it's not just about the caffeine. But, there's so much more to the coffee experience than just Starbucks, right?
Absolutely. The world of coffee is vast and diverse.
Oh, yeah, for sure. The documentary you shared, it really dove into this global coffee scene, way beyond just your typical latte. Like, did you know that the city of Cristina in Brazil is known for producing some of the world's highest quality beans?
Oh, wow, that's interesting. I knew that Brazil was, a major player in coffee production. But I had no idea about Cristina. What makes their beans so special?
Well, the documentary highlighted, their climate and soil conditions just create these ideal growing conditions for specialty coffee. They even featured this producer named Sebastião Alonso, whose farm attracts, coffee enthusiasts from around the world. It's like a pilgrimage for coffee lovers.
Wow, that's really cool. It really shows how passionate people are about coffee.
Yeah.
It's become so much more than just a drink. It's a way to explore, to connect with others, even an art form in a way.
Yeah, and don't forget about those coffee clubs and subscription services.
Yeah.
They cater to that desire for convenience and curated experiences, bringing those specialty beans right to your doorstep.
It seems like the coffee industry is always finding new ways to engage and delight its customers. It's a great example of how businesses can adapt and innovate to stay relevant, in a world that's changing so quickly.
And, speaking of adapting and innovating, here's a surprising fact from one of the articles you sent. Switzerland is one of the world's top coffee exporters,
Really?
despite not growing any coffee beans.
Wow, that's wild. I never would have guessed that. How is that even possible?
Well, they've carved out this, unique niche for themselves by focusing on trading and processing and really adding value, They're known for producing really high-quality machines and capsules, partnering with coffee-growing regions to bring their beans to the global market.
That's pretty smart. It really highlights the power of collaboration, even in a competitive industry. Switzerland has found success by, leveraging their strengths and building relationships within that coffee ecosystem. It reminds me that sometimes the most innovative solutions come from working together.
That's a good point. And speaking of collaboration, the documentary also highlighted this cooperative spirit within the Brazilian coffee industry. There are all these organizations that support producers, they promote quality standards, they really work together to elevate the industry as a whole.
That's refreshing to see,
Yeah.
especially in a global market that can often feel very cutthroat. It makes me wonder, what could other industries learn from that approach? Could it lead to better quality products, more innovation? A more sustainable future for everyone involved?
Yeah, those are great questions. And it makes me appreciate, just the interconnectedness of this whole global coffee experience. It's like this blend of agriculture, business, culture, and passion all coming together in a single cup.
Speaking of culture, the documentary did such a nice job of showcasing how coffee's become woven into, the fabric of societies all around the world. Remember that phrase, kawa?
Yeah. It's Arabic for strength, right?
Right. And it's believed to be one of the origins of the word coffee. It's a reminder of how coffee has traveled across continents, shaping traditions, and even, our language along the way.
It's almost like a cultural ambassador in a way, right? sparking conversations and connections wherever it goes. And, the documentary also highlighted how coffee shops have served as these gathering places for artists, poets, intellectuals, fostering creativity and this exchange of ideas.
Yeah, for sure. And that social aspect of coffee is still so relevant today. Just think about how coffee shops have become hubs for remote work, for casual meetings, even first dates. They provide that space for people to connect and engage in a way that goes beyond just buying a product.
It's a testament to the power of place and atmosphere. Coffee shops have created these environments where people feel comfortable lingering, working, interacting. That's something a lot of businesses could learn from.
Definitely. And let's not forget about the sensory experience of coffee, too.
Mm.
The documentary talked about how the aroma of freshly roasted beans can evoke really strong memories and emotions.
Yeah, it's true. Aromas have this unique way of transporting us back in time, triggering vivid memories and associations. And the coffee industry has really mastered the art of appealing to our senses. From that visual presentation of latte art to the sound of those beans being ground, it's a multi-sensory experience for sure.
It really is.
But the documentary didn't shy away from some of the challenges facing the coffee industry either. It touched on issues like fair trade, sustainability, the impact of climate change on coffee production.
Yeah, those are really important issues that need to be addressed. Consumers are becoming so much more aware of, the ethical and environmental impact of their choices. And the coffee industry really needs to respond to that.
Yeah, and one of the articles you sent in, it even mentioned this pilot project in Brazil that's focused on recycling coffee capsules. It's a huge step towards sustainability, addressing that major waste problem that comes with those, convenient little pods.
It's encouraging to see those kinds of initiatives taking shape.
Yeah.
It shows that the industry is recognizing the need to address its environmental footprint and find creative solutions for the future.
Yeah, and that sustainability needs to extend to the people involved in coffee production too, of course. The documentary really highlighted the challenges faced by many coffee farmers, especially the small-scale producers. Fluctuating prices, limited access to resources, the impacts of climate change, it can be a really tough way of life.
It's a good reminder that our choices as consumers have this ripple effect throughout that entire supply chain. Supporting fair trade practices and making sure that coffee farmers are getting a living wage is essential for a truly thriving and equitable coffee industry.
Yeah, it all comes back to that idea of collaboration, right? If we want a sustainable and ethical coffee industry, everyone involved from farmers to roasters to consumers needs to work together.
Exactly. It's about building partnerships, sharing knowledge, and finding solutions that benefit everyone. The coffee industry, despite its challenges, really offers a great example of how collaboration can lead to positive change.
It's inspiring to see how innovation is driving the industry forward. The documentary even mentioned this technology that lets you print images like directly onto coffee foam.
Wow, that's pretty cool. That's taking personalization to a whole new level. Imagine getting a latte with a picture of your, loved one on it. It's just another example of how technology can enhance the coffee experience and make it more memorable.
And the innovation goes beyond just technology too. The documentary highlighted how some coffee shops are experimenting with these unique flavor combinations, incorporating local ingredients, even offering coffee-infused cocktails.
It's all about pushing the boundaries and exploring new possibilities. The coffee industry is never content with just, the status quo, always looking for ways to surprise and delight their customers.
And speaking of surprises, I learned something in that documentary that completely blew my mind. Did you know that Brazil, despite being the world's largest coffee producer, actually imports coffee too?
No way. Really? Why would they do that?
Well, it turns out they import specific varieties that aren't grown domestically, primarily for blending purposes. It just goes to show how interconnected the global coffee trade really is, and how even the biggest producers rely on that, collaboration and exchange.
That's so interesting. That's a great example of how countries can leverage their strengths and specialize in certain areas,
Yeah.
ultimately creating a more diverse and robust global coffee market.
And the documentary also introduced us to the world of coffee competitions,
Wow.
showcasing the skill and artistry involved in crafting that perfect cup. You've got baristas creating these intricate designs on latte foam, identifying these subtle flavor notes in different beans, just constantly pushing the boundaries of what's possible with coffee. It's pretty inspiring, honestly.
It's like watching an artist at work, really. These baristas are so passionate about their craft and they're constantly striving for excellence. It's a reminder that even in something as everyday as coffee, there's room for creativity, innovation, and that pursuit of perfection.
Absolutely. And it makes you think, how can we apply that same passion and dedication to our own work, no matter what field we're in? There's always room to grow, to learn, to strive for that excellence.
That's a great takeaway, something we can all think about over our next cup of coffee. Speaking of which, I think I have a fresh pot brewing. Would you like a cup?
I'd love one, thanks. After this deep dive, I feel like we've both become like coffee connoisseurs or something.
Maybe. It really is remarkable. All the sources you gathered painted such a vibrant picture of this whole global coffee landscape. We travel from Ethiopia, the birthplace of coffee, all the way to Brazil, the production powerhouse, with stops in Italy, Switzerland, and even Dubai along the way.
What a journey, right? It really highlights how interconnected our world truly is and how like a single commodity can have such a profound impact on economies, cultures, and even our own personal experiences.
One thing that really stood out to me was that entrepreneurial spirit that we saw throughout the coffee industry, like from Melita Bentz, the housewife who revolutionized coffee brewing with her simple filter,
Right.
to Howard Schultz, who had that vision to transform Starbucks into this global phenomenon.
Yeah.
There's this clear theme of innovation and a willingness to take risks.
Yeah, it is incredibly inspiring. They saw opportunities where others saw obstacles,
Yeah.
and they were driven by like a passion for coffee, this belief that they could make a difference. It's a good reminder that we all have that potential, to create something impactful, even if it starts with a simple idea or just a desire to solve a problem.
And that problem solving was so evident in a lot of the stories we discussed, whether it was Melita's quest for a better cup of coffee, or the Brazilian coffee industry's focus on sustainability and supporting those small-scale farmers.
Yeah.
There's that constant striving for improvement, this commitment to finding solutions that work for everyone.
It's a great example of how businesses can be both profitable and purpose-driven at the same time. The coffee industry is showing us that by focusing on quality and sustainability, ethical practices, you can create a business that's not only successful, but it makes a positive contribution to the world.
Yeah, for sure.
And it brings us back to that, overarching theme of this deep dive, the experience.
Yeah.
The coffee industry has gone beyond just selling a product. It's about creating this whole holistic experience that engages all the senses, that fosters connection, and leaves a lasting impression.
It's about understanding your customers' deeper needs and desires and crafting an experience that speaks to them, whether it's a sense of community, a moment of indulgence, or simply just, a delicious cup of coffee that's made with care.
It makes me think, how can we apply this experience mindset to other areas of our lives, whether it's our work, our relationships, or even just our daily routines? There's always room to think about how we can make things more meaningful, right? Create more positive experiences for ourselves and for others.
Absolutely. We can all take inspiration from those innovators and problem solvers that we learned about.
Yep.
Embrace that entrepreneurial spirit, that willingness to try new things, to challenge the status quo.
Look for those little things that could be improved, and don't be afraid to experiment, to be creative. You might just stumble upon your own billion-dollar idea. Or, even just find a new way to brighten someone's day.
Exactly.
So thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of coffee. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as we have.
Me too. Thanks for listening, everyone.